So my case study is about Lange versus National Biscuit Company. Overview: the National Biscuit Company, Nabisco, is a company that produces and distributes cookie and other snacks products to grocery stores and other outlets across the United States. Ronald Lynch is a sales representative for National Biscuit Company. Lynch's day-to-day duties consisted of making sales calls, obtaining orders, and making sure the product is stocked and placed accurately on the vendor's shop. Within few months of the job, Lynch received numerous business owners' complaints regarding Lynch's overly aggressive attitude and took the shelf space for Nabisco product, reserved for other competing brands. During one of Lynch's restocking appointments, he visited a grocery store managed by Jerome Lange. Lynch previously delivered merchandise on the store shelf. During one of the drop-off and inspection of Nabisco's product, an argument arose between Lynch and Lange. Lynch became irate and angry and started swearing and berating Lange. Lynch became irate when Lange told him to stop swearing because children were present. This provoked Lynch to assault Lange viciously. When Lange sued Nabisco denied liability. This case was initially heard in Hennepin County District Court, and then ultimately this case was showcased in the Supreme Court of Minnesota. The decision and the judgment by the Supreme Court completely contradicted the District Court verdict. Torts and factors. As per the torts rendering in this case court, I believe in intentional torts which comprise acts of assault, false imprisonment, battery, and other intentional conduct that led to injury to Jerome Lange. Additional legal factors arose from the Supreme Court analysis ranging from the scope of employment and vicarious liability. District Court viewpoint. Lange National Biscuit Company was initially initiated at the Hennepin County District Court by the plaintiff Jerome Lange to recover for the personal injuries sustained by an employee. Ronald Lynch defended National Biscuit Company, Nabisco, the substance that was submitted to the jury on the thesis of negligence and respondent superior. The member of the jury heard the case thoroughly. The jury verdict stated, although Ronald Lynch had been acting and interacting within the scope of his employment at the time of the assault, the defendant Nabisco had been negligent in the hiring and retention of such employee. In the event turned by special process, the court granted the defendant Nabisco motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict, which reversed the jury decision. The clause that the judge used, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, is rarely granted intervention that permitted the judge to exercise discretion to avoid unreasonable jury decision. The theory of respondent superior was when essential to show the employee was acting within the employment scope. Yet, unfortunately for the case, the respondent superior was in disparity involving the scope of employment. Even though Minnesota law itself imposes liability, actions are motivated to fuel the business desire. Hence, a master Nabisco is responsible for employees' action and be held liable in those instances. For an example, the validity of respondent superior was in disparity involving the employment scope of the case. Supreme Court of Minnesota viewpoint. The Supreme Court to review the plaintiff appeal Jerome Lange. It was no-brainer in my estimation with such controversial decision by the judge which was the opposite of the jury verdict. The greater clarity and injustice, another review by the governing body of the court was needed. The fact that the district court granted the defense motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict. There are higher chances of appeal. The Supreme Court heavily analyzed the relationship between the master and servant, negligent act of agents, alongside the Minnesota current law with the relation of respondent superior. After a thorough review of the entire case and conducting due diligence of factor ranging from the scope of employment, vicarious liability, and liability of principal, the Supreme Court verdict ultimately held that the National Biscuit Company, Nabisco, is liable for the assault perpetrated by the sales representative Ronald Lynch due to the assault occurring at the work-related time and place. Furthermore, Lynch's attitude and demeanors are constant. The firm did nothing to improve or place restrictions nor any sanction on adhering to the company culture or ethically conducted business. The Supreme Court also concluded finding that Lynch acting within the scope of employment at the time of aggression. The verdict by the Supreme Court concluded that the prior decision is inconsistent with the state law and the plaintiff, Jerome Lange, can recover damages either on the theory of respondent superior or negligence against the National Biscuit Company. The verdict was reversed and remanded with instruction to enter the judgment on behalf of the plaintiff.